I will now begin my presentation. According to an article titled Stigma, STDs, and Mental Health by LGBTQ Youth by Millie Dawson, one big reason... Oh, fuck. I will now begin my presentation. According to an article called Stigma, STDs, and Mental Health in LGBTQ Youth by Millie Dawson, one big reason that LGBTQ people are at much greater risk for harm from STIs has to do with emotional and mental health issues. Queer youth do have higher rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide, says Warren Bretlicht, MD. Their heightened risk with regards to STDs and mental health are tightly related, and stigma provides the unifying thread, causing harm in many ways, research shows. A queer youth dealing with an STI and mental illness may face ostracism for their gender identity and sexual orientation, for having STIs, and for having a mental illness. Each of these factors by itself often prompts widespread stigma. Todd Starnes with Fox News. Obama's LGBT executive order endangers religious liberty. President Obama signed an executive order Monday barring federal contractors from discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity, ignoring the pleas of Christian and other faith leaders to include an exemption for religious organizations. The executive order would prevent Christian and other religious organizations with federal contracts from requiring workers to adhere to the tenets of their religious beliefs. He said the president's order forces employers to put aside their principles in the name of political correctness. This level of coercion is nothing less than viewpoint blackmail that bullies into silence every contractor and subcontractor who has moral objections to homosexual behavior. Queer youth also sometimes stigmatize themselves. Queer youth often face shame and rejection at home, at school, in their communities, and in healthcare settings. They also face a heightened risk of violence. For instance, high school age sexual minorities, such as those who identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual, those who are not sure of their sexual identity, and those who have had sexual contact with people of the same or both sexes, are twice as likely as heterosexual students to face bullying and physical or sexual dating violence, reports the CDC. Not surprising, the president's executive order was warmly welcomed by left-wing organizations like Americans for Separation of Church and State. As I wrote in my new book, Godless America, this administration believes in gay rights more than they believe in everyone else's rights. Vice President Joe Biden went so far as to declare as much during a speech to international gay rights activists. Inhumanity is inhumanity. Prejudice is prejudice. That explains why a Christian baker in Colorado was ordered by state commission to undergo re-education training after he declined to participate in a gay wedding celebration. That's why a Christian photographer in New Mexico was found guilty of discrimination for refusing to photograph a gay wedding ceremony. That explains why Democratic lawmakers in multiple states tried to shut down Chick-fil-A because of the owner's privately held beliefs about traditional marriage. Stigma-induced shame and guilt contribute to mental illness. Chronic emotional upset physically damages the brain and impedes decision-making. This leaves queer youth less capable of practicing safe sex and being open with partners. Stressors prompt the adrenal glands to produce excess cortisol. This injures the prefrontal cortex, the brain's center from impulse control and self-regulation. The greater anxiety and depression common among queer youth can also lead to self-loathing, says Dr. Licht. People who feel bad about themselves may engage in high-risk sexual behavior. It's a source of gratification, almost like a drug. Instead of using cocaine, they will engage in sexual encounters that they know is risky but is instantly gratifying. Democrats and LGBT activists have a sinister plan to crack down on Christian schools. Senate Bill 1146 will close a loophole that lawmakers say will allow Christian universities to discriminate against students based on their gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation. The president of the Sacramento-based university called the proposed legislation chilling. It discriminates against religious colleges, said John Jackson, the president of William Jessup University. It really does infringe on how we carry out our mission. Stress levels for queer youth depend on how much support and acceptance they experience in everyday settings, as opposed to hurt and rejection. Today, though, the odds of a harsh social environment are much higher for queer youth than those who don't identify as queer. For a queer young person to speak frankly about their gender identity and sexual activities with a healthcare provider, or with anyone really, can feel stressful and risky, says Caitlin Custer, a senior health educator with the Huckleberry Youth Programs. The issue of safety is real. Young people wonder, if I come out to this person, how are they going to react? What if they don't respond in a validating way? Like others, queer young people must accept and respect themselves to enjoy good mental health. Like most Christian universities, Biola integrates the Bible through all of their courses, something they've been doing for more than 100 years. If the loophole is closed, it could have devastating impact on faith-based institutions. We are not willing to change our policy. There is very intentional attempts to marginalize those who don't accept the notions of sexual orientation and gender identity as the government has framed them. According to Planned Parenthood, 1.4 million Americans don't identify with the gender on their birth certificate and could face the loss of civil rights protections. LGBTQ people already experience greater barriers to accessing healthcare than non-LGBTQ people, yet the administration has repeatedly and is continuously trying to take away the rights of LGBT people. Examples include trying to strip transgender people of their recognized identities and civil rights protections, putting barriers in the way of LGBT people's access to healthcare, and nominating judges and officials with strong anti-LGBT records. This is Travis Fridson with Fox News reporting. United Methodist delegates reject recognizing gay marriage. Delegates at a conference in St. Louis voted Tuesday to strengthen the United Methodist bans on same-sex marriage and the ordination of LGBT clergy. After 3 days of intense discussions at the General Conference special session, 56% of 800 delegates in attendance voted in favor of a proposal by conservatives which upholds the church's stance prohibiting LGBTQ members from being ordained and does not permit same-sex couples to be married. If we bring this virus into our church, it will bring illness to us all. That concludes tonight's report. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I need to take a walk and clear my head. Why can't I go out without changing my clothes, my shoes, my posture, my gender identity, my age? The point being that I can't do what I want with my own body because I am in the wrong sex, the wrong age, the wrong skin. And suppose it was not here, but in the city. Or suppose it was not here in the city, but down by the beach, or far into the woods as I want to go. There by myself, thinking about God, or thinking about children, or thinking about the world. All of it disclosed by the stars in the silence. I could not go. I could not think, and I could not stay there alone, as I need be, alone, because I can't do what I want to do with my own body. Why is my existence up for debate?